Who do you think would win in a fight? An evil slug from outer space trying to take over a small town, or the army of angry rednecks who already live there? After one person gets infected, the parasite starts spreading to everyone in town, mutating them into terrifying monstrosities. And it's up to the locals to stop it before it takes over the entire planet. But will they succeed in saving Earth, or will they all be turned into more delicious meat? We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the space parasite in Slither. Hunting season is about to begin, but this time it's the hunters that need to worry. It's a quiet night here in this peaceful country town, but in just a few seconds, everything is about to change. Way out in the forest, a meteorite from somewhere in outer space suddenly crashes down to Earth, opening up to show a pulsing cocoon of flesh living inside. One night later, this rich guy Grant here is trying to put the moves on wife Starla, but she says that she's not really in the mood. Feeling frustrated, he puts on his pants and decides to head down to the local bar for a drink. He's a few bars deep when Brenda here takes a seat at his table, saying how he's had a crush on him since he dated her sister back in high school. These two quickly decide to take their business to the woods out back, but just when things are about to go too far, Grant remembers that he has a wife at home and decides to call it off. That's when they notice the meteorite that crash landed the night before, and there's a trail of slime leading from it to deeper into the woods. Drunkenly stumbling after it, they eventually come upon the pulsing alien egg sac lying in the mud. Grant does what anyone would do in a situation like this and pokes the blob with a stick, but that right there was his biggest mistake. You see, all of the sudden, a tiny barb shoots out and pierces the man straight through his chest, wiggling its way up his spinal cord until it finally latches onto his brain. Brenda screams as he slowly gets back to his feet, bleeding from every hole on his face. But Grant turns and walks off without saying another word, looking like the parasite has already taken over control. Somehow he's still capable of driving back to the house, but as soon as he gets there, he immediately opens the fridge and starts gathering up as much raw meat as he possibly can.
Listen, I don't know why Starla chose Grant over Bill. I mean, look at him. But maybe if Bill wasn't such a stinky boy and had the right fragrance collection, he would have stood a chance. Thankfully, we over here at How to Beat headquarters don't need to worry about being stinky because we use Scentbird. Scentbird is like a fragrance subscription service that lets you try out different colognes and perfumes every month. It's been a total game changer for me because I can explore new scents without committing to a full-size bottle. This month, I tried out True Western, the original, and this scent is dope. It's got earthy elements that really fit my vibe. You got golden aspen, vetiver root, and atlas cedarwood. It's a perfect everyday wear that isn't too powerful or makes you feel like you can only wear it on some special occasions. Some of the others that I'm really loving are Regent Leather by Thameen London and Voir Le Bon by Dime. Let's say me and the missus are planning a date night, maybe to see Alien Romulus for the 6th time in a row. These are the two that I would reach for. But you know what I love most about Scentbird? Well, a lot, for starters, but here are a few things. First, it isn't expensive. Cologne can get pricey, and what's worse than spending too much money on a scent is spending too much money on something you don't like. Can you imagine spending $300 on a bottle of cologne only to feel meh on it the next time that you wore it? With Scentbird, you can try out different scents each month. Less risk, more reward. And hey, even if you're new to the fragrance world, Scentbird has your back. You can take their personalization quiz on their website that will help you discover scents that align with your style. And if you're interested in trying Scentbird, use my code HowToBeat55 or scan the QR code to get 55% off at Scentbird for your first order. You can get the product for half the price. That's just $8. And your next month will be only $16.95. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video. If you're interested in trying out Scentbird, use my code HowToBeat55 or scan the QR code to get 55% off at Scentbird for your first order. Without further ado, back to the show.
Okay, it looks like Grant here is about to have one hell of a bad hangover. We have no idea what this thing is, so if we're going to beat it, then we have to try and understand it first. The creature may have come from outer space, but it behaves exactly like any parasitic species that we already have here on Earth, by latching onto the host body to use them for its own survival. And just like all other parasites, their primary goal is to reproduce. And what makes this species even more terrifying is what happened after Grant got spiked. Most parasites live on our skin, hair, or inside of our intestines, but this one traveled through his body and planted itself right at the bottom of his brainstem. This area acts like a relay station between your brain and the rest of your nervous system. By latching on there, the parasite will be able to influence Grant's motor functions until it's basically driving him around like a puppet. Now that it's found a suitable host, it looks like the parasite's next obsession is consuming as much raw meat as it can find. That's obviously bad news for us, because in case you haven't noticed, we are meat. But it also tells us something about how the creature functions on a metabolic level. Raw meat is an extremely protein-rich, high-calorie food, which the parasite needs to provide it with fuel as it begins to grow and mutate into other forms. When it comes to confronting the creature, taking care of it while still in its egg sac stage would be easy. The key is to keep your distance to avoid being hit by the barb, or wearing extra layers of protective clothing for added defense. Then all you have to do is smash it, blow it up, or roast it with fire. Go crazy. Just make sure you kill it off before it can take over a human host. But now that it's got control of Grant, the situation gets a little bit more complicated. There's a chance that a highly skilled surgeon could remove it without causing further damage, but Grant would have to tell someone that he needs help before it's already too late, and as we're about to see, that's not going to happen at all. However, it happens though. Once they figure out that he's been infected by some kind of space parasite, the most important thing would be to quarantine him and stop the infection from spreading. From there, doctors can study the parasite, figure out how to keep everyone else safe from it, and maybe even save Grant. It's important to remember that parasites can't live without their host. Worst case scenario, if Grant dies, then the parasite dies with him. And as long as it didn't get to anybody else, we won't have to worry about it anymore. The bottom line is, Grant needs to get himself checked into an emergency room as soon as possible, but I think that it's pretty clear that he's not the one in control anymore, and this parasite has other plans in mind. His mind. Starla leaves the next morning, still clueless about what happened, but while she's at work, Grant here is busy building himself a nest down in the basement and awkwardly buying up every single steak at the grocery store. When she gets home, she notices that there's a new padlock on the basement door, but he's able to play it off by pretending that it's a secret for a birthday present. It seems like nobody's catching on yet, but the more that the parasite takes over, the less that Grant has any control, and it forces him to start going after the neighborhood dogs just to satisfy its hunger. Later that night, they're getting ready for an event in town when Grant notices that he's breaking out in a disgusting rash. The parasite starts to take control again, forcing him into the bathroom where Starla is showering as two bizarre tentacles emerge from his chest. He reaches for the door, but he's able to resist it at the last second, shouting to his wife that he'll meet her at the party before running out of the house. Instead of heading into town, Grant goes to see Brenda at her place, looking to settle some unfinished business from the night before. She says that her husband's away for the weekend and invites him inside without a second thought. But the truth is that Grant here has something else on his mind. Just when she thinks that they're about to get down and dirty, Grant rips open his shirt, revealing the disgusting rash that's been slowly growing underneath. Before she can escape, Grant pins her down as the two tentacles emerge from his chest and pierce into the woman's stomach, pumping her full of some disgusting alien substance while he sits there smiling on the couch. Many hours later, Starla here arrives home from the party, feeling worried that her husband never showed up. Calling out for him, she finds the man sitting in the dark living room with his head covered in disgusting growths that he says are just from a bee sting. Horrified, his wife wants to get him to a hospital, but he insists that he's already seen his doctor, still managing to cover it up for now. It isn't until the morning that Starla gets in touch with her husband's doctor, but he says that he has no idea what she's talking about. Meanwhile, Grant here is out gathering up more animal carcasses from the woods, bringing it all to an abandoned barn where he keeps Brenda chained to the wall and feeding the woman pound after pound of the disgusting rotten meat. That night, Starla is taking out the trash when the local police chief Bill and his partner Wally pull into her driveway. They explain how Brenda hasn't been seen for a few nights, mentioning that there were signs of a struggle. The bad news is that her husband was the last person seen entering her house, but Starla tells them that he isn't home, taking the officer's card and agreeing to call them when he gets back. Once they're gone, her suspicion finally takes over and she bashes open the locked basement door, venturing inside only to find the place turned into a cesspool of carcasses and gore. Terrified, she immediately tries to call the officers, but the call goes to their answering machine. And that's when she realizes that Grant is watching her through the window. The man lets out an unnatural howl as she races for the door, but he manages to cut her off right before she can lock it, tackling her to the ground and sending the phone sliding across the room. Furious, he rages at the woman for betraying him as he tears open his shirt, unleashing the tentacles that reach down to pierce her chest. She's briefly able to fight him off with some furniture, but he puts her in a chokehold before she can reach the phone. That's when the officers walk in just in the nick of time, drawing their guns and ordering Grant to freeze. Letting her go, the man turns for the back door as his body rapidly starts to mutate, with his arm stretching out until it looks like an elastic band, disappearing into the night and leaving the officers speechless at what they've just seen.
Okay, so that was insane. It looks like Reed Richards over here just went through some kind of parasite puberty, but at least he's gone for now, and that gives us a chance to come up with a plan for how we're going to end this invasion before it goes too far. Now first, let's start with what we've learned from this encounter. Not to point out the obvious, but I think it's safe to say that this alien is a predator. We can see this from his dodgy movements and decision to hunt for live prey instead of finding other methods of gathering food. There's just one thing holding it back from reaching its most deadly form. Grant might not be as vulnerable as the egg sac, but he's still just as vulnerable as the average human. That's why he was so careful before approaching Starla for the first time, has only targeted local pets and other small animals, and then eventually went after Brenda as his first human victim, since he already knew she would let him in. What this means is that the parasite doesn't want to risk anyone catching onto its presence and putting up a fight until it's ready. After Grant's recent transformation, we've learned that the parasite can manipulate his cellular structure in order to physically alter the man's body. It seems to be enhancing predatory traits such as his strength and vision, with the overall goal being to take Grant from a host to a full-blown symbiotic being, fusing their human and alien biologies together to create a much more powerful and dangerous version of himself. Now, Grant isn't the only person who's been infected. Based on what's happened with Brenda, it looks like he turned her into a new host for the next generation of the parasite's offspring. That's bad news for us, but the good news is that for now, it seems like the infection only transfers through direct contact with the host, specifically by getting poked with Grant's freaky-ass tentacles. As long as we avoid contact with Grant, we might be able to stop him before it spreads to anything else. Instead of chasing after him, the first thing that Bill and the other officers should do is secure the crime scene here at the house. This will give them time to search for clues and possibly find out more about what happened to Grant or where he might have taken Brenda. They might be a small police force, but they can easily increase their numbers and effectiveness by bringing in some help from the local hunting community. The hunters will know the terrain better than anyone else and have experience tracking animals through the woods. Not only that, but they'll have specifically trained dogs that can help them search for both Grant and Brenda by tracking their scent. They'll also be able to help us with specialized hunting equipment like night vision or thermal optics, as well as an arsenal of high-powered weapons. And it's never a bad idea to have some extra meat shields around in case things suddenly take a turn
turn for the worse. They probably don't want to cause a panic, but the truth is that they should really alert the rest of the town. That way, Grant won't be able to catch anyone by surprise and use them to keep spreading the infection. The smartest thing would be to lock down all of the livestock and raw meat in town. If they cut off Grant's food supply, then he won't be able to sustain his rapid growth. This will force him to take more risks and put himself in more dangerous positions, allowing the officers to either set up a trap and capture him, or get rid of him the old-fashioned way, before he becomes too much of a threat for them to handle. 3 days after Grant was last seen, the station gets a call that there's been another attack, this time at an isolated farm on the outskirts of town. When they first arrive at the property, they find the owner's dogs already torn into shreds, and somehow the man even dragged an entire cow into the forest with nothing but his bare hands. The woods are too thick to search them all at once, but Bill tells his officers to gather up some local hunters and meet him back at the station, because he just figured out where Grant is going to strike next. By tracking out the locations of all the previous attacks, the pattern shows that his next stop must be a farm north of the city. If he's right, then hunting the man down won't be necessary, since all they have to do is hide at the farm and wait for Grant to come to them instead. Taking out an arsenal of weapons that could hold off an alien invasion, the deputies load up and head for their trucks, where they're suddenly confronted by Starla. She knows that they're going after Grant, but points out that they'll never find Brenda unless they take him alive, saying how she's the only person that her husband will trust. Bill isn't sure about the idea, but lets her join up after realizing that she's right, determined to stop this freak before the situation gets any worse. At the farm, the father goes to greet the officers when he sees them arrive, telling his family that they need to stay inside for the rest of the night. Half of the team still aren't sure if they even believe it's true, but the farmer leads the way as they get familiar with the property and set up camp where they're going to hide out until nightfall. Late that night, everyone splits up into smaller groups, waiting at different parts around the property for Grant to finally show up. For a while, it seems like they might have guessed wrong, but just when the mayor turns around to look at him, he sees the man approaching through the tall grass a few yards away. Only this is not the same Grant that they met 3 nights ago. He's completely transformed into an unbelievable alien monstrosity with tentacles sticking out from all over his body, and a face covered in disgusting bloody slime. The others can only sit there looking shocked as the monster emerges from the woods. Approaching a cow, it lashes out with one of its long tentacles, killing the animal instantly as it pierces straight through its neck. This definitely calls for an adjustment to the battle plan, but even the chief still can't figure out what they should do next. The creature takes the cow and starts slithering back towards the forest, but that's when Starla splits up from the group to follow his trail, forcing the others to run after her. Catching up to him, she decides to try getting through to his human side instead, speaking to Grant like he was still her husband deep down inside. Surprisingly, the man is still completely aware of what's going on, and he admits that he's really just afraid. Starla promises that he'll be alright, but no matter how much she tries to reassure him, Grant knows that he's already gone too far. The creature turns to run as the officers start closing in, but one of the hunters cuts off its path, threatening to open fire if it doesn't surrender. Instead, it whips the man with one of its tentacles before he can even react, slicing his entire body in half, and making 2 victims down with 11 more to go. The officers open fire as the creature slithers away, but it's way too fast for anyone to land a shot, and their only choice is to keep following the trail deeper into the woods.
Okay, and I thought Grant here was supposed to be the one with the split personality, but I guess I was wrong! The bad news is that the local Jiffy Lube just lost their most trusted employee, but the good news is that the town's average IQ actually just went up a few points. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. Buddy here saw this thing in the middle of the woods and somehow decided that the best choice in that moment was to stand directly in its path and yell, "Put your tentacles up!" I don't know what he was
thinking by saying we can do this the easy way or the hard way to a man-eating abomination from the depths of outer space, but I guess it picked the hard way, and you weren't exactly ready for that now, were you, buddy? I could understand if you hadn't just seen the thing insta-kill a cow with a tentacle through the neck, but even with the Desert Eagle, this obviously wasn't a fight that you wanted to start. Things didn't go as planned, but there was only one person who ended up dead, so I've got some bad news for you, buddy. This guy right here, you, sir, have f***ed all the way up. As the creature continues to evolve, we can see that it's progressively making itself even more dangerous and seeking out more sources of food to fuel its rapid changes. It seems like the parasite has rebuilt Grant's muscular structure in order to give him superhuman strength, as shown by his ability to drag a 1,000-pound animal behind him like it's nothing. The creature can also use its tentacles as precise ranged attacks that can reach out to a distance of about 10 feet, and is strong enough to tear a man completely in half in the blink of an eye. Just by looking at him, we can tell that he's probably more resistant to physical attacks now as well. He might even have the ability to regenerate from injuries, meaning that our attacks need to be very precise and effective if they're going to do any lasting damage. Now, like we touched on before, his constant need for more raw meat to fuel these changes could end up being Grant's biggest weakness. Bill here was accurately able to predict where he'd show up next, and that's because his next move is always going to be to look for more food. That's why we need to warn everyone in town to keep themselves, their pets, and their livestock safe until they've managed to take him out, since cutting off his food supply will stop him from growing, and also drain his energy a little bit before the next fight. Now, there's a chance that Grant's heightened predatory instincts could cause him to lock in on a single food source while ignoring any other dangers, which could make the perfect opportunity for Bill here to set up a trap. This could also mean that he's more sensitive to certain stimuli, like light and sound, so a bright light or a very loud noise could disorient him long enough for somebody to land a critical hit. Bill and the others are making a big mistake by blindly chasing after him, since Grant could easily be leading them into an ambush. We've already seen how deadly this creature can be, even when surrounded by a heavily armed group in an open field. So the last thing that we want to do is end up in a one-on-one fight with it on its home turf. We can't beat him physically, so we need to use the advantages that we do have: numbers, strategy, technology, and time. Since he clearly has an emotional attachment to Starla, they could try using her as bait, and then attacking while his guard was down, but this would put her in an unnecessary amount of risk, when we know that meat will work just as well for now. So let's keep Starla out of harm's way until we have no other choice. The creature did let one other thing slip. Deep down inside, at least some part of him is afraid. Now that we understand its psychological weakness, we're going to use that to our advantage. The plan should go something like this. We start by locking down the entire town, including all of the pets, livestock, and even the grocery stores, except for the large stash of meat placed in a strategic location that works to our advantage instead of Grant's. Everyone gets prepared with the latest high-powered weapons that they can find, including some makeshift flamethrowers to really get the job done. When they spring the attack, they should use noise and lights to make it as terrifying as possible, leaning into the creature's inner fear and causing him to make mistakes. The key is to aim for the head. There's no need to worry about the rest of his body, since destroying the parasite itself is the ultimate goal. There's no sign of Grant at first, but one of the officers eventually spots him running away down a muddy creek, and the group chases after him until they end up outside of an old abandoned barn. The place smells so bad that they're already gagging before they're even 10 feet from the door. They aren't sure what it is, but they know that it can't be good, and when Bill starts listening closely, he can hear what sounds like a woman crying on the other side. After a game of rock, paper, scissors to see who's going in first, it looks like it's up to Bill here to lead the way, but nothing could prepare him for what he's about to find. Opening the door, they're shocked to discover what's left of Brenda here waiting for them inside. Oh, she's completely alive alright, but completely blown up into a massive bubble, with the parasite forcing her to eat until she almost took over the entire building. The officers can't believe their eyes, and Bill here tries asking the woman how she ended up like this. But all that she wants to do is keep eating more and more of the rancid meat. The best plan that he can think of is getting the woman to a hospital somehow, but before they can do anything, Brenda begins to shake as her entire body starts ripping open from the inside out. And that's when Bill realizes that they've just walked straight into a trap. All of a sudden, the woman literally explodes as thousands of these nasty alien slugs come pouring out of her, crawling all over the officers and trying to climb right into their mouths if they get the chance. Bill manages to save Starla by covering up their mouths as the creatures swarm all over them, but some of the other officers weren't so lucky. That makes 6 victims down, with 7 more to go, and now it looks like the parasites are heading straight for the city. Back at the farm, the family's oldest daughter, Kylie, is upstairs taking a bath, completely unaware of what's about to happen. After getting annoyed with her mother telling her to hurry up, she decides to put on her headphones and listen to some music, never noticing that one of the slugs has already gotten inside. The creature slithers up to the side of the tub and drops into the water, swimming straight towards her mouth, but she wakes up and notices it coming after her just in time. Terrified, she leaps out of the tub and starts crawling at her back, but the slug almost manages to get inside her mouth, causing her to have horrific visions of how it reproduced back on its home planet. This time, the girl manages to tear the creature out before it can fully take over, smashing it up against the wall and finishing it off with a hot curling iron. Covering herself up, she quickly runs out of the room yelling for her parents, only to see her mother collapse to the floor while vomiting up huge spurts of blood. She can hear her younger sisters screaming from their bedroom, and with more of the creatures closing in, she manages to bash through the locked door using a statue. When she finally gets inside, she realizes that both girls have already been taken over by the parasites, and dozens of them are coming to get her next, leaving her with no choice but to climb out the window and jump from the roof. Landing safely in the yard, she sees her father stumble outside and collapse on the porch, making 10 victims down, with a lot more to go. The creatures are still coming after her, and with nowhere left to run, her only option is to take cover in the family truck as they all swarm over the outside, relentlessly searching for a way to get in. Okay, this situation just keeps going from bad to worse. Now we've got Gary the Snail's evil cousins on the loose, and they're trying to assimilate everyone in town. Clearly, these things must be some kind of offspring or larval form of the parasite that infested Grant, and Brenda's body was acting as an incubator, allowing the slugs to grow until they were ready for the next stage of their life cycle. The good news is that their smaller size, limited methods of attacking, and vulnerability to physical damage means that they're not much of a threat if you're just encountering one. The real danger comes when they can take you by surprise, swarm you in a way where there are too many to avoid. This time, it's not just 1 or 2 of them like the original parasite. There are already hundreds or possibly even thousands of these things on the loose. And this was just the first batch. This indicates that the parasites have moved on from a stealth-oriented strategy to using their overwhelming numbers to reproduce as quickly as possible, which means that they don't have long before the slugs are trying to take over the entire planet. At this point, the situation has escalated way beyond any normal person's ability to solve it. They're gonna have to bring in the military to solve this one, and once you do, you know that they're only 1 order away from nuking the entire town. For the average person living in Wheelsley, this means that it's time to get the hell out of there. Hopefully, you're like Kylie here and figured out that the slugs are a threat before they were able to infect you. You could try locking down your house, but since the outbreak seems to be localized to just this town, the better strategy here is to escape as soon as possible, but you still need to get prepared. The biggest threat is a slug getting inside your body by forcing its way into your mouth. To counter this, we need to cover up our mouths with any sturdy material that we can find. It would probably take a full-blown medieval helmet to really keep you safe, but the point is to make it as difficult as possible for the slugs to get inside. Since we know that they can be killed by physical force, the next step is to arm ourselves with some weapons. I'd go for something like a baseball bat or shovel as a general-purpose slug smasher, but also grab a kitchen knife or a hatchet for a quick, up-close defense. Now obviously we'll take some firearms if we have any, but if not, regular old fire always does the trick. We could try using torches to hold them back, improvised flamethrowers using aerosol cans for ranged attacks, and Molotov cocktails to take out an entire group of them all at once. Now once we're armed up, we need to fight our way to a car and then just start driving. I'd try to bring a tube like a garden hose if I could. That way I'd be able to siphon fuel from abandoned cars along the road, extending out my range of travel and getting me as far away from the infection zone as possible. If running isn't an option, then the only other choice is to get inside and hold out for as long as you can. Seal off any possible gaps that they could use to enter the room. Make sure that you have some weapons to fight in case they get inside, and hopefully you can survive long enough for this all to blow over. Meanwhile, Bill here tries radioing down to the station for help, but nobody seems to be answering on the other end. As Starla checks over the bodies, she notices that they're actually still alive, but they're about to realize that this is not necessarily a good thing. Bill decides that his only choice is to go after his car back at the farm, leaving Starla and the other survivors to watch over the injured officers. In the meantime, Starla is trying to get some water from a nearby pipe when one of the injured men suddenly sits up and begins to approach her. Turning around, she's shocked to find him back on his feet. But the strangest thing is that he's speaking in the voice of her mutated husband. The man begins confessing all of the brutal attacks around town, but asks his wife to forgive him, saying how he was only acting based on natural instincts. That's when the mayor and one of the deputies come back carrying another injured person, but they quickly realize that something's gone terribly wrong. All of a sudden, the victims start to reanimate, transforming into a horde of hive mind zombies. Before anyone can react, the zombies surround the deputy and start getting ready to eat her alive. Starla aims her shotgun, ordering them all to get back, but the zombies all turn and start arguing with her in Grant's voice. While they're distracted, the deputy tries reaching for her pistol, but the zombies catch on before she gets it out of the holster, and one of them launches a burst of yellowy slime at her neck that starts dissolving her flesh as soon as it makes contact, making 11 victims down with an entire city more to go. Dropping her to the floor, one of the zombies starts shouting at Starla that she doesn't have what it takes to kill him. But that's when she pulls the trigger and blows off the side of his face, causing the parasite to slither out and disappear into the woods. She pulls the trigger again as the others begin to surround them, but quickly realizes that she's out of ammo, forcing Starla and the mayor to take off running as the zombies follow after them. At the farm, Carly here might think that she's safe when the slugs finally disappear, but just a few seconds later, her zombified family members come shuffling outside and surround the vehicle, demanding for her to open the door. There's obviously no way that she can trust them, but there's nothing that she can do as her father grabs a rock and starts trying to smash straight through the windshield. Lucky for her, the police chief Bill here happens to show up just in time, and she runs over to him while the family is distracted, frantically explaining that the worms have taken over their brains. Suddenly, they're jumped from behind by another zombie with a shovel, knocking Bill to the ground, but as it goes in for the kill shot, he quickly blows its toes off with his revolver, buying them another chance to escape. All around them, dozens more of the zombies are actually swarming the property. One of them even launches a burst of acid spit in their direction, but they dodge it and manage to run back to the officer's car. Rushing the girl into the back seat, Bill manages to get inside just as another glob of spit hits his window. At the same time, he sees Starla and the mayor running across the road up ahead. The mayor gets his feet tangled up in some wire, but just as one of the zombies is about to kill him, Bill speeds up and plows into it with his car. The zombie comes to a stop at Starla's feet, where she brutally kills it with an iron spike through the neck. And the four of them speed away as the constantly growing horde of zombies shuffles after them down the street. Okay, man, as if things couldn't get any worse, it looks like the parasite here just unlocked yet another stage in its up life cycle. Regular zombies are dangerous enough as it is, but these ones are even worse. When you take your standard shamblers or even some more advanced sprinters, they're basically just mindless killing machines that react to stimuli. You can easily predict their actions and use the appropriate strategies to outsmart them, but these zombies are different. They all share Grant and the parasite's collective intelligence, which means that they're able to formulate plans, work as a team, and even use tools and set up traps. Not only that, but they can instantly communicate with each other in response to any new information. As Kylie here is going to point out, if one sees you, they all see you, making them more like a cohesive army than a mindless swarm of individual threats. The only way to kill both a zombie and the slug for good is to go with the always reliable method of completely destroying the brain. With so many of the slugs around, trying to wipe out all of the zombies would be a huge wasted effort. Instead, we have to go after the source of the issue and focus on finding and destroying Grant himself. After springing their trap, they need to focus all of their attacks straight at his head. Now, these guys aren't stupid, and they're actually about to come up with a pretty similar plan, but it's not going to work out exactly how they hoped. Once they're a safe distance away, Bill goes back to calling the station over the radio. This time, the receptionist, Shelby here, finally picks up, but she hasn't heard anything about what's going on in town. Bill tells the woman that she needs to call the CDC, but as soon as he hangs up, dozens of the slugs suddenly burst out from the vent directly above her head, making 12 victims down with hundreds more to go. As they reach the outskirts of town, Bill calls in to see how Shelby's doing, but she answers him back in Grant's voice, saying that they're about to be in for a bad surprise. All of a sudden, they're completely blindsided by a speeding truck, crashing them off the road. And by the time that Bill wakes up, they've already been surrounded by a horde of screaming zombies. With Bill unable to open the door, the monsters drag Starla away while he's busy climbing out through the window. He manages to get Kylie out before they take her, but the mayor is still knocked out from the crash, forcing them to leave him for dead as they run for their lives. After sneaking over to the police station to grab a hand grenade from the weapons locker, they come across a group of the zombies vomiting acid onto somebody they captured. Observing their actions, Bill realizes that they're taking all of the bodies to the north side of town, thinking that following them might lead them to where they've taken Starla. It might not be the best plan, but it's all that they've got left. Sometime later, Starla wakes up to find out that she's been taken back to her old bedroom. The zombies even cleaned her up for her big date with Grant, and right now she can hear him calling her to come downstairs. But from the sound of things, it's pretty obvious that she isn't going to like what she sees. Noticing a sharp brush on the table, she quickly pulls off the bristles and hides it under her dress, knowing that her only choice is to confront Grant face to face. Making her way downstairs, she lets out an involuntary gasp. Sitting across the room is an enormous monstrosity of flesh and tentacles, with Grant's head still poking out from the center of the blob. Outside, Bill and Kylie finally arrive on the edge of the property, but what they find there is not good. The place is already swarming with zombies, but that's when Bill sees Starla through the window, knowing that he only has one chance to get this right. Inside the house, the creature wraps his tentacles around Starla's body, shouting at her for trying to kill him and be with the police chief instead. She quickly realizes that her only chance is to play along, so she tearfully apologizes for turning on him earlier, saying how she promises to stay with him no matter what. Getting through to his human side, she's able to get the creature's guard down for just long enough to lure him into a kiss. But as soon as he leans in closer, she pulls out the brush and stabs it as hard as she can into his neck. Screaming in pain, he reels back and lashes out with one of his tentacles. Hearing the commotion, Bill fights his way across the lawn and kicks open the front door. Inside, he finds the mayor starting to mutate, and instantly Mercy kills him without a second's hesitation, making him the 13th victim. Just when the monster is about to kill Starla, Bill rounds the corner with the grenade in his hand. But as soon as he pulls the pin, the creature swats it all the way to the other side of the room. He manages to find it just in time, but before he can throw, the monster knocks his entire body out of a window, and it uselessly explodes at the bottom of the pool. In the same instant, it picks up a couch and flings it straight into Kylie, before releasing two of its baby makers to go after Bill. One of them pierces into his chest and begins to fill him with slime, but he's able to catch hold of the other one with his free hand. forcing it straight into a leaking propane tank, filling the creature with explosive gas as it yanks Bill back inside. Realizing that her only choice is to shoot, Starla grabs his weapon and fires it into the blob, causing it to instantly explode in a ball of flames. All across the yard, the zombies immediately drop to the ground now that the master has been taken out, and it looks like the Earth is finally saved. Starla, Bill, and Kylie here even managed to survive the incident, but there's just one problem. They didn't learn the most important lesson of all, and forgot to destroy the brain.
Slither. Yeah, that movie was cool. I actually saw it for the first time recently. I missed it theatrically, but I remember when it came out, everyone was going ape for it because James Gunn was a hot topic at the time. I mean, he had just come from Trauma. This is before Guardians of the Galaxy, and Slither honestly was kind of fresh. And plus, Michael Rooker, hello, key. But what would you have done differently? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. I'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.